Can do that. All right, welcome everybody to this planning board meeting Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. First up is a roll call on our agenda tonight. We have Lisa Buck, myself, Phil Ruck, we've got Judd McIntosh, we've got Michael Costello, and we've got Bob Bear. Next up is acceptance of the agenda. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion, edits, comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of the agenda? All right, moving on. Approval of the minutes of March 19th, 2025. Krista is not with us this evening, so we're gonna have to do our best to fill in for her. Anybody have any comments, edits?
No. I move we approve them.
Oh, there we go. I'll take that motion. Can I get a second?
Second it.
No further discussion, edits? Good work. Is it on you now?
Amanda actually graciously did that.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. All those in favor? Very good. We're rolling today. Next up, we have new business. We have these three things we have to talk about. Two public hearings. First up, public hearing for a major site plan amendment application of Machias Holdings LLC to add walls and adjust the interior floor plan of the existing building to establish a child care center caring for more than 12 children and ancillary professional office space at 16 Godfrey Drive, tax map 11, lot 51 in the EDZ zoning district. Isabel, I think that we have the applicant online, and just for the applicant's benefit, Isabel's gonna give us a summary of the application, and then if you have anything to add after that, again, prior to opening up the public hearing, you can let us know. But Isabel, you're up.
All right. So this is a major site plan amendment. I will show the as-built plan in a second, but it was originally approved in about 94 or 95. At least construction was finished in 1995. This is at 16 Godfrey Drive, and the proposal before you is to add walls and adjust the interior floor plan of that existing building to establish a child care center caring for more than 12 children. That distinction is important because our ordinance requires less than 12 children to just be approved administratively by the code officer. This is going to be, well, they have the capacity for about 213. They're planning on 14 staff members, so large daycare facility. There's also an ancillary commercial school use, and then they are planning to have professional offices related to this as well. It's in the economic development zone. It's tax map 11, lot 51. And I should note that the graphic on your screen is showing the property with the building on it. They also own the property to the right, which has part of the parking lot on it. And you can kind of see that a little bit better in this as-built drawing. That was the as-built that was provided after construction was completed in 1995. And then the interior floor plan that you're seeing is what they're proposing now. So same building, no additions, no anything.
So, can we ask questions now?
Just wait a minute.
Okay.
Or finish up and then we'll get to it. Please.
And then with regard to buffering and screening, again, there's no exterior renovation. There's no site work being proposed. So there are no specific buffer strips required under section 18-126. There is a small forested buffer strip that exists between this property and the adjacent MDR property to the west, which is currently vacant. With regard to natural areas, the site is currently developed under that site plan approved by the planning board, where the building placement and site amenities in relation to any of the natural features on the site were reviewed. There is a wetland on the adjacent property, I believe, but not impacted by this proposal. The project will continue to comply with this standard. There are no changes to the exterior of the building or the site, and no disturbances to wetlands or removal of trees are proposed. With regard to traffic access and parking, the layout of the parking areas on site and the access into and out of the site were approved as part of that previous review. Vehicle access to the site will continue to be from that existing entrance from Godfrey Drive, and site distances continue to be met with an assumed speed limit of 25 miles an hour. The project's expected capacity is 213, including 14 employees. The IT trip generation manual, the 11th edition, projects approximately 6.23 daily trips per each 1,000 square foot of gross floor area for this kind of land use, which works out to be about 131 trips a day, 50% entering, 50% exiting, or about that. A waiver has been requested for the full traffic study as this is a change of use. This was previously an existing call center. They had provided their justification in their application materials. The use also requires a total of 94 parking spaces. 280 parking spaces exist on the site from that 1995 as-built drawing, so this standard will be met. And there continues to be pedestrian connections to the parking areas and the building entrances with a sidewalk around the entirety of the building as well. With regard to drainage, stormwater, erosion control, no changes to the site, no changes to this standard. And then with regard to lighting and signage, there were no revisions to site lighting proposed with this application. Any future signage associated with the project, like with any project, will need to be reviewed by the code enforcement officer. I've suggested a condition of approval reaffirming that in accordance with section 18-140. And then with regard to utilities, the proposal will utilize a private trash hauler and is anticipated to have minimal construction demolition debris, just based on what's going on site. That will be managed by the contractor, so there are no impacts to municipal solid waste. The Orono VZ Water District, I had reached out to them regarding capacity to serve. They have no concerns with the capacity to provide public water to this new use. There's already a water line on site. The Orono Water Pollution Control Facility Superintendent has provided a capacity to serve letter for the change of use as well. I believe I provided a copy of that email in your packet. The project will take advantage of otherwise existing utilities already available at the site. There are no utilities proposed. With regard to waivers, there are a number of waivers that I outlined in my review memo. These are mostly related to construction, but again, they did request a waiver with regard to a full traffic standard. They've justified that that's not applicable given the previous use of the site, which was a call center, and given that no changes to traffic movement throughout the site are proposed. Staff is in agreement and comfortable with these items. And then I'm offering 3 standard conditions. The requirement to return to the planning board if anything changes with the plans or the findings that we have outlined. There's a requirement to obtain a building permit from the code enforcement officer, which they have submitted for. Noise will be regulated, and the applicants are well advised to familiarize themselves with our noise ordinance. And then any future signage is to be reviewed by the code enforcement officer prior to installation. I'm going to stop sharing and promote the applicant to speak. If you have any questions for them.
You have anything to add to Isabel's summary?
Sorry, it's a little bit clunky. He's taking a second to rejoin, so he's not in yet. Tom, you should be allowed to speak now. You'll just have to unmute yourself if you'd like to add anything to my presentation.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. No, you pretty well covered the bases. It is a repurposing of the building from like a business to a daycare facility. And we're still working with the tenant and the fire marshal for a final plan. But what you see there is very, very close. So.
Very good. Thank you. Before we open up the public hearing, I'll open it up to questions from the board. Anything?
I just want to understand on the floor plan, the green are the new walls?
That is correct.
Okay. So it's going essentially from an open floor plan to a closed floor plan.
Yes.
Okay.
And it appears that you have there are 5 or 7 new offices. How many are proposed? I'm trying to count them all. 1, 2, 3.
That's the daycare facilities. Yeah. The rooms that are being basically subdivided.
Yeah. It just caught my attention, a mix of professional offices beside a daycare. So just curious on how much activity for professional offices you anticipate, or if it's
It's
mostly
their
daycare.
own, it's all their administrative offices for daycare.
Okay.
It's all the same use, essentially.
All right. Yep.
Yeah. So for our purposes, we wouldn't necessarily consider that a different use. We'd consider that like ancillary to the daycare use.
Okay.
Right.
So you indicated that this plan is close, but not 100%. One of our caveats is if there's, I guess, significant changes, I can't remember the exact word, it has to come back before us. We're going to rely upon the CEO, I guess, to determine whether or not that's needed. Is that the intent?
So I'll provide some context here. It wouldn't be typical that you guys would see an interior floor plan, I don't
We've
think.
never seen one before.
Yeah,
Sure.
so our findings and all of our findings are based on, for the most part, exterior site work with the exception of things like traffic and some of these more quantitative things. The floor plan is provided for your knowledge, but is not something that would need to return to us. And the code enforcement officer has some authority to do some minor approvals as long as it doesn't change findings, which we do take advantage of occasionally. Again, as long as it doesn't change any of the adopted findings.
Understood. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I just saw prior to building permit, Pat is gonna review everything, so good. Any other questions? All right, I'm gonna open up the public hearing, invite any comment. Do we have anybody from the audience? Gentlemen, anybody online?
The only person I have online is another applicant, so.
Okay.
that's-
I'm gonna leave it open for just a minute. I'm curious because I happen to have an office in the building next to you. So I'm just curious, I've seen the roll-offs and all of the construction that's been going on. All of that's gonna be disposed of properly, all those good things, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Correct. It's just cleanup. There was a lot of water damage in the building, so we had to take
Yeah.
out pretty much all the ceiling tile, had to take out all the flooring, and just basically it's cleanup time because the building was dormant and definitely needed some attention.
Yeah, I saw you took down the trees out front too, so.
Yes, clean up the landscaping. Yes, that had been fell. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you intend to pave that at all?
I know there is some out front where the primary parking will be because there's just a ton of repairs that we're going through and making a list. Yep.
Yep, very good. Last call for comments. Nobody, Isabel? Close that public hearing. Seems pretty straightforward. Any final comments from the board? I think we need to vote on waivers first, so if I could get a motion.
I can do that for you if you like.
Sounds good.
I move to approve the waiver request for Machias Holdings LLC as noted, as the noted items are not applicable to the proposed project, given the scope of what is being requested and given that no exterior building or site work is proposed.
Nice, thank you. Michael?
That was exactly my words.
Yes.
Second.
Second, very good. Any further comment? All those in favor? Very good. With that, I think we're ready for another motion. Isabel has prepared findings of fact, conditions of approval. I guess just one more thing before we get into this, signage. I would anticipate that you're gonna have some kind of signage for a school daycare facility. Is that correct?
I would assume so. Yeah. So we'll end up going through the the ordinance and the building or the signage permit process with the town.
Okay. Just checking. That's all I have. So ready for another motion, please. You rolling, Mike? Michael?
Sure.
Right.
I move to approve the major site plan amendment application of Machias Holdings LLC to add walls and adjust the interior floor plan of the existing building to establish a child care center caring for more than 12 children and a commercial school within the existing building at 16 Godfield Drive, tax map 11, lot 51, per the findings of fact dated the 16th of April, 2025, subject to the conditions listed below.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. Do I have a second?
Second.
Very good. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Very good. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have another public hearing this evening. This is a major site plan review application of the University of Maine, authorized agent WBRC Inc. to construct a plus or minus 47 space parking lot and reconfigure a portion of the existing track to Alphon Way adjacent to the previously permitted soccer field complex at 168 College Ave, portion of tax map 11, lot 77 in the university zoning district. Isabel, you're up again. You know the drill. We're gonna listen to Isabel, and if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I won't reiterate what you've already said. I will just point you out, this graphic that you're seeing on the screen, is the overall site. The red circle, and a little bit next to that is sort of the approximate location of what's going on. That can be seen a little bit better on the site plan that's up on your screen. So the grayed out area is the previously permitted soccer complex. I'm of the understanding that you had that before you, maybe 2 years ago, right before I started with you. And then the parking lot area that's in gray is the new parking that's being added. That reconfigured track is also shown in a darker gray. With regard to buffering and screening, there are no specific buffer strips required under section 18-126. Section 18-126E provides buffering standards relating to parking areas, and it notes that the required buffer strips shall be, quote, consistent with setback requirements, which in the university district is none. Natural areas, the proposed parking lot and accessway is being developed on previously developed land. It was area that was used for track and field throwing events. The proposal is located over existing developed areas to minimize impacts to natural features. There are some wetlands near the project site. These were all shown on the submitted plans. They're proposed, and also I should note that some of these wetlands were already impacted by the track and field throwing areas. That was shown on the existing conditions plan. They are proposing about 1,500 square feet of wetland impacts that has been previously permitted under a Maine DEP permit that's referenced here. There are no protected wildlife areas or habitats within the vicinity of the project site from available state mapping, and there are no trees proposed to be impacted. With regard to traffic access and parking, vehicular access is to be provided from the Alphon satellite lot by way of Long Road, which is a private road that's interior to the campus, or Branch Road, same thing. This section of the campus is primarily accessed from College Avenue, but as you know, there are a number of ways to access the area. Vehicular circulation of this area associated with the new parking lot will have a new striping to provide some clear delineation of vehicular circulation paths. This is in an effort to improve safety for the movement of passenger service and emergency vehicles throughout the site. The parking and maneuver layouts for the internal movement were reviewed by the fire department and no concerns have been raised. Site distances can continue to be met with an assumed speed limit of no more than 25 miles an hour in a parking lot. So, you know, probably a little bit slower than that. The parking lot will be constructed to add ADA spaces adjacent to the soccer field and replace some of the parking spots that were lost from recent athletic facility improvements at Alphon Arena. You'll recall that we also reviewed that Alphon Arena change, and there were a number of parking spots being removed at that time. So they're sort of being replaced. A few of them, I should say, are being replaced over here. There are no new buildings or infrastructure that would generate additional traffic being proposed here. The proposal provides for pedestrian walkways within the development appropriate to the type of the development. The new Alphon Way will be utilized for pedestrian movements as well as access by university maintenance. With regards to drainage, stormwater, and erosion control from pre to post development, overall impervious area increases by about 1,700 square feet over the throwing sports area with a new parking and maneuvering area, but the impervious will be removed from the Alphon Way area with the removal of track. So that's a net increase of about 1,700. to minimize impacts to the wetland area that's adjacent to the Charles Street neighborhood and respond to comments from the town's engineering peer reviewer. The design redirects stormwater from a portion of the existing parking area to the university's closed drainage system, decreasing water volume to the adjacent wetland area from pre to post development. Post-development modeling for 2, 10, and 25-year storm events show that both peak flow rates and runoff volume will be decreased at both study points. That's that wetland area and another area sort of on the developed area of the site. And an erosion and sedimentation control plan was prepared to minimize soil erosion and chances of sediment being transported. These measures will be implemented meeting the specs contained in Maine DEP's Best Management Practices Manual. With regard to lighting and signage, cut sheets have been provided for the proposed parking lot lighting. These are showing that the proposed fixture is rated at between 5,000 and 28,000 lumens, depending on brightness, which is controllable. All fixtures are downcast or shielded, however, so that no light is emitted above the fixture. They've provided some detailed lumen calculations and some detailed views on the submitted cut sheets within the application materials. A photometric plan has also been provided showing that no light is visible off the property line. Sort of right after you get off the proposed parking areas, the light tapers off to less than 1 foot candle in most places almost immediately. Any future signage, again, is required to be reviewed by the code enforcement officer, and I've suggested a condition to reiterate that should this project be approved. With regard to utilities, the only new utility is the electric service for the parking lot lighting, and that will be undergrounded consistent with our ordinance requirements. Again, there are no other utilities, including to public water supply or public sewer systems, required or proposed with this application. There are a number of waivers. Again, this is an amendment to a previously approved plan. Just given the size and scope of the proposed project, items related to sewage disposal, building, and any agreements, like such as easements or agreements for public space, any of that, which would not be applicable to the proposed project, are requested to be waived. They've detailed these and their justification in section 10 of the submitted application book, and staff is in agreement with these items. And then with regard to recommended conditions, so we have our 4 standard conditions of approval. And then with regard to unique conditions, this is a project that is actually only before the planning board because it is required to be here for earth moving. So what's going on is more than 100 cubic yards of earth moving material. And so one of the things under section 18-130 requires that a verification of the amount of earth moving material used is provided to the code enforcement officer within 30 days of project completion. And then again, any future signage is to be reviewed by the code enforcement officer prior to installation. And that's all from me.
Very good. Toby, do you have anything to add?
Toby from WBRC. And I just want to add that we do understand, we've been here several times in front of the board with Alphon, the stalker.
Oops, could you hit power there on the mic? There we go.
Is that better? Yeah. Okay. I'll start from the beginning. I'm Toby from WBRC. We've been in front of the board several times the past few years for the soccer project, Alphon project. And I remember specifically from the soccer project, the concern with the amount of water volume going towards Charles Street in that wetland area. So we did do our best to minimize the amount of runoff heading towards that area. And so we did in fact decrease the volume of water as well as the peak flow from heading in that direction. And the nice thing about where this parking lot's going is it provides ADA spaces for athletic events right next to soccer, right next to football. They're really short on ADA spaces when it comes to special sports events. And so we were able to provide more in that spot. So that's all I have.
Open it up to questions from the board. If I could ask, could you just clarify where the stormwater is going? I saw the one line was removed from kind of the middle of
Yep.
the throwing area, but
Yep.
where are you sending stormwater now? If you have a.
Isabel, can you pull back up the plan? So if you're looking at it on the left-hand side where it's gray, that's all existing parking. That's part of the Alphonse satellite lot. And what we're doing is we're regrading that area so that it drains towards Alphonse Way. Alphonse Way is the serpentine road that goes up around the end zone of the football field. All that area right now is currently impervious, and we're taking that all out, putting grass in and putting Alphonse Way. It's a large pedestrian way and service way for the university. So what we're doing is that area there where it's existing pavement of the Alphonse satellite lot is we're regrading that so it all drains towards Alphonse and Alphonse Way, and there's a catch basin that we're collecting it and sending it towards the football field.
I did see that in the grading plan. There's one,
Yep.
okay, one low spot.
Yep.
Good. Just a question too. I just, not as familiar with the area, but I know it shows an existing stockade fence around the perimeter of the throwing area, and it appears that you're adding to that for screening along the wetland. Could you just clarify? It appears to show up on the plan, but I just want to make sure I understand what your proposed new fencing, where that's going.
Yep. My understanding is that we're proposing to continue that fence all the way through to sort of delineate that area from the abutting wetland area.
Okay, so it's, most of the perimeter's enclosed and you're gonna fill in the gap.
Yes. Yep.
All right.
So I live right, like across the street from this. And there's a pathway from Charles Ave that comes into the existing parking lot. There's a break in the fence. And a lot of people use that pathway.
No.
And
Is-
I'd like it to be preserved.
Now, when you say that, do you mean at the existing Alphonse satellite lot?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
right, well, it's not quite, if you move your cursor to the right, I think it's a little bit, it's right around there.
Okay.
I walked it today, so, yeah. So I got to see I was wondering what all that construction was.
Well, the construction that you're seeing now is the soccer field and track and field.
What's happening at the other end then?
The track. So the track is no longer going to be around the football field. It's actually moving up.
Say, I got
I was trying to figure that out because you did a bunch of work and you're taking up pavement. I was just trying to figure out how you're gonna blend it with that.
Yeah,
existing track.
so that, and Isabel can correct me if I'm wrong, but that doesn't require planning board approval, but
Mhm.
we did get site law approval for that work, which is separate. So it's a large master plan for the athletic events. We did softball, field hockey, now track field soccer is being done.
Ooh.
So,
So getting back to my question.
Yes.
I don't know, to be honest with you, there's a fence that is up against the last house right prior to the wetlands. And then people walk along that fence. I don't know who owns that, but the neighborhood uses it. So I don't know.
I'm looking at the lot line. So is it
Yeah.
right on so the fence has got to be on the house side of the lot line. So is it on university property or is it? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean,
Looking at that
at
tree
that.
line there.
So this is the property line.
yeah, so
Yeah,
there's
so
a fence
somebody-
here and then there's a path that comes like
Okay.
this. I don't know. I mean, there's an
I think
opening
the
in the
owner
fence.
of that property is actually here.
Oh, okay, yeah,
There's a fence on the university property
Yep.
along the parking lot.
yep,
Then if you go back over to 25 Charles Street, that resident has a fence around
Yep.
their property.
Yep.
That fence is on their property.
Yeah.
The pine trees are on their property line.
Yep.
are on pine trees.
I apologize. Need to record everything. So if we're gonna have discussions, like, could you, say what you said up there?
Maybe I'm not even supposed to use that little pathway, but. Mhm.
So my name's Chuck Major. I am on Charles Street.
Yeah.
Currently, there are two fences, stockade type fences. One is on the university, which has the hole in it, which
Mhm.
allows people to cut from Charles Street and other places. A lot of apartments come up that way to get over to the university. Especially now with construction, they can't go across the field at the end because there's going to be a soccer and everything else is happening there. So that's one fence which has a hole in it to allow people to get onto the parking lot by the Alfond.
Mhm.
Right behind that, resident at 25 Charles Street has a fence, stockade fence around their house, around their property, which is on their property. The people who go from Charles Street to the university fence, if you will, are usually walking on her property because it's a short way.
Mhm.
There's a line of pine trees. So people who walk on the east side of the pine trees are on university property. If they're on the west side of the pine trees, they're on private property.
Okay, thanks for
Does that
that.
help at all?
No, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so further questions before we open up public hearing?
That pathway, is that like the continuation of the pathway that passes by the baseball fields? Are they gonna re?
No, wait, do you mean Alphon Way, the new?
Alphon Way?
Yep,
Yeah.
it is. Yep,
So it's coming from the men's baseball field, women's softball field, and then it's.
yep, it's gonna go up all the way around, field hockey, and there's a small cul-de-sac. It's tiny. It's not really a traffic.
Because with the new construction on campus later, the students' access to Alphond and the football field will be changed because they won't be able to walk in that way. So is that how the students are gonna come from the dormitories when they come into the games?
Typically, and I lived on campus, so we would just go right down Long Road.
Yeah.
And cut across the large parking lot in front of Memorial Gym. So I typically students, if they come down the back way,
If they're
they
coming from like
go,
Hillside in that area,
they go on the southern side of the football field.
okay?
Because there is a way along the north side of Memorial Gym.
By the dome.
Yes, yep.
Okay, that's all.
Just recall at the last time, there was a fair bit of discussion on parking and the improvements in front of Alphon, which, I guess improved access to that front entrance, and there was the concern about spots being removed, and this would appear to address that as well. So that's a bonus. Further questions before I open it up? All right. Open up the public hearing. Isabel, well, actually, step right up. We have somebody waiting. Mr. Major.
Just a couple of questions. First, I love plus or minus 47. It sounds like it's 88 spaces. That's a lot more than a plus or minus.
Okay.
Just from a standpoint of how many spaces were in this piece right here.
What is that discrepancy? Because I agree with him.
That's double the size, almost double the size.
You have, how many spaces?
You said I thought you said 88 earlier.
Did I? No, it's only 47.
Okay, perfect.
ADA.
Okay.
Americans with Disabilities.
Okay,
That's right.
good, good. Then I have a question about the lighting. And it talked about the downward part of the lighting and it'd only be off to a couple feet off of the property line. Define property line we're talking about. Property line is next to my house or property line of the parking lot?
Sorry, I hope that I said parking lot, not property line. So they have provided a photometric plan that shows where the lights will be on the parking lot. It is showing that once you get sort of past the parking lot, it drops down to less than 1 foot candle, not visible at the property line.
Okay.
Or-
That's
what
just,
I heard you say was the parking lot
Okay.
that right after you get off the parking lot, it just.
Well, it was property line, but understand parking lot,
No,
fantastic.
thank you for
Be-
having me
be-
clarify.
Because other instances with lighting over there has been dramatic sometimes. And it's been adjusted by the university each time there's been an issue. So that's fantastic for that. Has there been any thought, just knowing how people do drive, about putting any sort of speed bumps? Because this road says 25 miles an hour. Is there any thoughts of putting any sort of speed bumps in there to make sure they adhere to that?
You're up.
I presume I come back to the podium.
Yes, please.
No. And the reason why is because that road is not actually, a road that's going to be driven. That road, Alphond Way, is just for pedestrians, walking, bicyclists, and a service area for the university vehicles themselves to go back and forth. You may have ambulances use it, buses use it for, teams like track and field, but it's not specifically for vehicle movement. And the parking lot itself is right adjacent to an existing parking lot that's already there. It's tying into that Alphon satellite light that's there. Can't talk. It's probably why you heard the 88. So, does that answer your question? Well, if you got more, I don't mind at all.
It's, look it over here first. I understand exactly where it is, and it's coming off of a parking lot. I've seen people drive in that parking lot already. Now you're extending the parking lot out further. I understand the Alphon Way or whatever that is going around the fields, and I wouldn't expect people to be driving on that. It's just college students sometimes are college students and sometimes aren't the best neighbors, if you will, if that makes any sense. So, fence, speed bumps, property. That's all my list. Thank you.
Very good. Do you want to add anything to the speed and just to clarify that one?
That's hard. When you have people that just don't adhere to speed limits, you're going to have that anywhere. And in a parking lot, it makes it difficult to put speed bumps right in the parking lot. One of the nice things that we're doing with the Alphond project is that we're actually making Alphond into a drop-off area. So you're not going to have people cutting through there as much. It'll be more difficult for someone to use that area as a bypass. So, but that's separate from this.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from the board? All right, anybody online?
Michael's with you, right?
Yes.
Okay, then no.
Okay. All right, Mr. Major, before I close the public hearing, do you want anything more? We good? Close the public hearing. I don't have a lot of questions. I was pleased that this seemed to address comments from a meeting a while back. I like the additional fencing, and trying to minimize flooding in that, wetland area. That all seemed like a good idea. So I'm pleased with a lot of this newer plans, but any other further comment? All right, I think we need to act on waivers. Yeah, if I could have a motion for that.
I'll do it. Yep.
All right.
I move to approve the waiver request of the University of Maine as the noted items are not applicable to the proposed project, given the scope of what is being requested.
Thank you. Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Very good. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All right, now that that's out of the way, I think we're ready. You've seen the proposed findings of fact as well. Do we have anything to add to that? Are we good? Are we ready for a motion? All right, I think we're ready. Somebody can have it.
I move to approve the major site plan application of the University of Maine, authorizing agent WBRC Incorporated for the construction of a plus or minus 47 space parking lot and reconfiguration of a portion of the existing track to Alphon Way for the findings of fact dated April 16, 2025, subject to the following conditions.
I'll second it.
Very good. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All right, next up, we have a discussion. Oh, actually, this is nomination and promotion of an associate planning board member to a full voting member. Think we typically followed, just length of service, isn't that how we've normally done it?
This hasn't, this
Yeah.
hasn't occurred while I've been here, actually, so I'm not 100% sure. I was hoping you would tell me.
From Dave Thompson?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay, wow. Yeah. Okay, yeah,
Just
wow.
saying yes.
So we've been, yeah, I know we've been down a member. And is there anybody waiting in line to join the planning board, Mitch? Any?
We did get one applicant, yes.
Mm.
Yep. So, they would be, we need to promote an associate first, and then they will be considered for that associate position that opens up.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so who's associate now? Bob has been,
And Ashley,
and
yes.
Ashley. Bob, you're here, Ashley's not.
So you lose.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you joined right around the same time, is that correct? Yeah. Thoughts? I mean, I don't remember the exact start date, but
It's been a while.
yeah.
Couple years.
Okay
Do we
with
need a
that?
motion?
I'm fine with it.
Okay. Bob, you said you're willing to step up?
Do we need a motion or no?
I would do a formal motion to nominate, yes.
Let's hear a formal motion.
I move that we nominate and promote Bob Bear to a full voting member of the Orono Planning Board.
I'll second that for you.
Very good. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Wow, your check just went up, Bob.
It's
Nice.
doubled.
Double, yeah. Old business, we have none.
Shouldn't
Town-
joke like that. People will believe it.
Yeah.
Well, just be aware that 2 times 0 is still 0.
Okay, there we
Yeah.
go. Yeah. Town planner report. Isabel, what do we have coming up? Actually, no, we've got bylaws. I
Yes.
forgot about that. Never mind. Let's do bylaws first. Isabel, can you summarize what we're looking at?
Yeah, so this is the first reading. I know we had some discussion about this at the last meeting, but I didn't have text written at the time. I was just trying to get a more thorough understanding of what your past practice had been. So now I have some text drafted. Essentially what this does is designates the code enforcement officer as the reviewing authority for determination of greatest practical extent that setbacks can be met for non-conforming structures in the shoreland area. That probably makes little to no sense to you because you've very rarely ever seen things like that, or if ever. This is sort of an administrative step. The shoreland zoning guidelines from the state allows the code enforcement officer to be designated by the planning board. I do want to note that the code enforcement officer has been operating under this in the past. We have been given some guidance from our town attorney that we need to formally designate him if he's going to continue in this role. So he suggested adding it to the bylaws, and that's what I've done here on page 7.
So can we get, is it question time?
Do it.
So I have some familiarity with this kind of thing, but I just want to like outline some use cases.
Mhm.
So let's say that someone has a house within, it's 150 feet now, 250 feet, or whatever it is.
250 in the resource protection, although most of the time houses can't be built there. It's 75 feet in all other shoreline zoning areas.
But this is existing structures, right? So
Right,
this is an existing structure within that 75 feet.
right.
And now they want to expand it or tear it down, and he's measuring things to see what's what?
So if somebody wants to do even a vertical expansion, so like not adding footprint, but going up in that shoreline zone, and yes, they're within 75 feet of the water, the currently planning board is required to make a determination that that structure cannot be moved for a number of reasons, and that setbacks have already been met to the greatest practical extent on that property. Or if somebody again wants to expand that structure or tear it down by more than 50% of its market value, those would all be use cases when the planning board needs to make this kind of a determination. Yeah. It's all sort of in an effort to incentivize folks to move their home or camp or the structures back on properties to meet that water setback. There are about, I think, 5 findings that you have to consider. In any case, the code enforcement officer would still be considering those same 5 findings. It removes the requirement to come to the planning board meeting and allows the code enforcement officer to make that as an administrative decision.
All for that.
And the code enforcement officer wants this, like, we have a camp where this is very controversial. And people get very upset. But our code enforcement officer is willing to do this and own this.
Yeah, we actually don't see these super often. We, just to give you a note, we recently saw one of these. This is how this all sort of came to light. The code enforcement officer approved it under the authority that he believed he was delegated at some point.
And someone called it out.
Someone was appealed. That project will still be coming before you because the Board of Appeals remanded it.
Got it.
But this step is hopefully to prevent future projects from needing to come before you.
Got it. Okay.
As you said, he's functioned in this capacity for a while. It's just, this is housekeeping.
Correct.
All right.
Okay.
Any more scenarios?
No, I just wanted to,
Yep.
there's some heat with this, so
Yes.
if he wants the heat, he can have the heat.
This is not a public hearing. We just did one of these for ordinance amendments.
So with bylaws, you need to see and discuss the text, then have a formal vote at the next meeting. So
So that's the next meeting.
next meeting.
All right, so we're just pushing this off. We don't even need to make a motion. We're good.
Yes.
All right, I like that one. All right, do we have any further comment on that? All right, what's up next time?
The project that I was just referencing will most likely be before you next time. It's a remand from the Board of Appeals to do a greatest practical extent determination. And I say likely because I have not reviewed it for completeness yet. I do have one other project that has been deemed complete. It is to address after the fact earth moving activity that occurred at 485 Main Street down the way. So that will be before you in May and has been deemed complete.
Is that the old salvage? Is it 45?
Old salvage, yep, now SR1.
Yep.
Yep.
Very good. Any further comments? All right, next up is adjournment. Taking a motion?
So moved.
Second? Anybody?
Second.
Further discussion? See you next month.
Mr. Chuck, congratulations on your retirement.
Ooh, good for you.